Hey, what is going on YouTube? Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are in the USS Georgia, the predecessor really to the USS Ohio, which we know is coming on Monday. So I wanted to go ahead and grab a game kind of preparing you guys for the Ohio, but also we haven't played the Georgia in a long time and I forgot how much she slaps. These 457s do a lot of damage, which is exciting because we get the Ohio. Presumably on Monday, Wargaming said they will allow us to have her, so be prepared for that. But also, this game teaches us a lot of lessons that you need as a Battleship player, positioning and mitigating the HE spam. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Some of you may already have noticed, but if you have not, the game mode is Domination. We did spawn on the right flank on this sea side here. And I will say Atlantic is one of those tricky maps where it's sometimes difficult to play this flank. The islands are kind of, they kind of force you inside, and especially if you overcommit in a battleship, it can be a very painful experience. But what we're doing in this situation is we're kind of getting in this defensive position here. Nothing is spotted yet. It is a carrier game, so we are wary of pushing in rather aggressively. But this defensive position, which you guys have seen me use time and time again, allows me to angle my armor and get all guns on target. Especially in ships like the Champagne and the Georgia and probably the Ohio when it comes to the game. You have a limited number of guns. Now, that being said, those guns do absolutely slap, but you want to get most of them on target when you can. And the only way to do that safely is to sit back in this defensive position. Now, we are broadside, but at this angle, I can turn, with the probable time on target, considering nothing is spotted and how far away the other battleships will be. But we see that a few ships are over here, so what we're going to do is kick that rudder towards it so we reduce angle. You can kind of see me, steering the back end of the ship towards these perceived threats over here. And again, at ranges like this, you would want to be more angled up close, obviously, and the angle kind of reduces as the closer you get with those penetrations and potential citadels. But right here we are perfectly angled to that hood and still able to get all of our guns on target. And that is when we notice this hood is on the way, and the hood combined with that Eastern Dragon, the Gorizia, the Helena, and I think there was another cruiser or battleship on the side, all decide that they want to HE spam me. And I said it on stream, but even now I'm looking back at this. While I did play this rather, I guess, passively compared to the experts on Facebook, the aggressive men, we are actually one of the most forward ships besides our destroyer and that other cruiser on the A side. So we are the easiest available target for everyone to shoot as we take rounds from multiple different opponents. But there we actually get a beautiful broadside on that hood, and in the meantime, we're actually on fire. You'll notice we do pop our heel because we are taking a large amount of damage, and that is when we get set on the double fire. So it was only after we get put on a double fire was the point at which we put out our fires. Single fires are not a threat to us. We can heal up, I'm going to say all, but there's different metrics, but basically you can heal up 90% to 100% of all flooding and fire damage as we get another beautiful salvo on that Gorizia to pop our second Citadel and tick ourselves already up to 60,000 damage. But you will notice in that whole, 30 seconds that I was trying to explain multiple different things, we have now been attacked by a carrier. We've been set on fire 3 times, but because of our position, we were able to get away. And again, a little nice maneuvering there, we actually dodged that torpedo salvo. So by paying attention to your positioning and allowing yourself that, defensive position to escape, you can not only dish out a ton of damage, as we've done 60,000 damage, but you can also attract a lot of damage and mitigate a good amount of it as well. If we would have sat there broadside or just pushed in bow tanking, we would be in a similar situation as this hood is, where he only has about 5,000 damage left. Now, that being said, we are still getting spammed, and we actually did get caught on another fire after we put out our double fire. So you could argue that sometimes in a position where you're getting truly spammed, you would want to wait until you have a triple fire. And we actually do have fight fire with fire, so that once we tick that triple fire, we hit our damage con, and then we are essentially protected by fight fire with fire, as a third fire would have activated the legendary perk, which, as most of you know, puts out those fires immediately. So a lot of blabbering for the basic advice of don't push in too aggressively, don't put out one fire, and you won't go to the forums crying about HE spam. And as we said in multiple videos, including the most recent one with the Zhao, if you find yourself constantly getting spam, I hate to break it to you, but you are probably not a great player. And what we mean by that is, yes, I got spammed in this game, but if you will notice, we have still dealt a lot of damage. We've attracted some damage, which is part of your responsibility in a battleship, but we have also mitigated that damage and not succumbed to the HE spam. So if you are finding yourself constantly getting spammed and out of position, then yes, you're not a great player because you're not putting your ship in the right position. We all will get spammed. We all will get shot at as we get the classic Pitadel that will eliminate the Gorizia there. You always love when you fire multiple salvos at a ship and it's the last one that you get the Citadel on. But regardless, we're pushing back in here. We've kind of taken that defensive angle out. But you'll notice we're kind of right in line with a few of our ships on this flank here on the northeast side or east side of the map on the right side. Our team at A has pushed in. And this is kind of what I talk about frequently. Usually you will have one side of the map that is rather aggressive and one side that is either passive or the weak side, as we call it. And we are sort of on the weak side here, despite eliminating a good number of their ships. But what we're going to do is kind of reinforce the middle here without making ourselves the primary target for more of the spam, as well as the carrier. I am not a huge fan of carriers, as are most of us, but unfortunately they are in the game, so we do have to deal with them. Now, I was in a little bit of a predicament here because I didn't really want to get spammed as this Southern Dragon pops up. So, as he is caught sailing broadside, we're going to go ahead and pop our plane, give him a nice lead. And what do we get? Well, we do get a nice hit, but unfortunately we don't get the Dev Strike, and that is just RNG. With only 6 guns, a point I was trying to make earlier, you're going to get less. Sometimes when the salvos aren't as accurate, and this has been made into a video, you're going to feel like the Georgia isn't that accurate. The same thing with the Champagne, and the same thing with any ship that has a limited number of guns. You're going to feel like you're losing a little bit of that accuracy or that the ship is not as accurate. But as told by the total number of salvos and the number of Citadel hits, this thing is pretty accurate and does hit pretty hard when those ships give up that angle. But if you will notice, we were actually set on another double fire, so we went ahead and put that out as we try and climb one of these shots here to hit that kiting Rochester. So we've been set on fire, I think, 5 times total now, but we still have around half of our health because we have managed our damage cons and heals appropriately. So we decided I would also like to note that the part of the only reason we are on this A flank as opposed to pushing into the C side is because we did have an AFK King George, as well as the battleship and cruiser on our flank weren't necessarily utilizing their health points as I deemed they should. Now, again, you're never going to get 8, friendlies to do everything you want them to do, as we get a beautiful shot on that Southern Dragon and get another Pitadel as he is low health. Why couldn't I have gotten that Citadel for the Dev Strike earlier? But regardless, we get him off the board. That is 2 kills, 95,000 damage total. So we have done what I consider to be an average game. Now, I say this, and then some people take it the wrong way. Also, looking back, this is probably one of the riskiest plays I did make. We were looking at the Lefudre earlier. He was brawling that other battleship, and we were actually watching his turrets. We did turn into a little broadside salvo there, but we kind of had enough time to turn to where those shells hit high. It did chunk us for a bit, and I wouldn't recommend doing that too often, but that was what we were doing there. And the reason for that is we are, sort of on the low end of health without any heals, and we don't necessarily want to brawl a Lefudre, which has great armor and all of his guns in the front. He would probably win that engagement. But back to my earlier point, 95,000 damage, or 1.5 times your total damage in a battleship, as well as some attracted damage, which we have certainly got this game, is my marker of a decent or average game in a battleship. If you are not matching your ship's total, let's say that it's 63,000, if you are not getting 60, 70, 80,000 damage per game, and you find yourself full health at the end of the game, you're not getting involved or doing your job as a battleship main. There's just nothing else to say about it. So yes, also if you do 100,000 damage but you YOLO in the first second, you could argue that you're doing your job, but a good middle ground of the two, right? You want to get some attracted damage without giving up all of your health, but also dish out some damage. So I say that, and then some people take it way out of context, and they're like, well, I didn't get 100,000. Aaron said I didn't get 100,000 in my destroyer. Must not be a good game. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's different for each ship, but on average, especially in battleships and cruisers. You want to be doing your ship's health and honestly even a little bit more in total damage, as well as attracting some damage. And I had a game the other day where this guy was in a Colombo, and he had all of his health at the end of the game, and there were like 5 enemy ships left. What is the point of preserving or kiting and running with all of your health if your team is losing massively, right? Now, if you're the only one on that flank, that's fine, but he wasn't. So, yeah, you really have to think about and readjust yourself accordingly. We did make another potential risky turn, but again, we were looking at where his turrets were angled, and considering that this game was essentially 8 on 9 the entire time, I think we've done a pretty good job mitigating as well as dishing out some damage. Not the highest damage game, and I actually was a little hesitant about posting this, but I think that these types of games really emphasize, how to better your play, right? We have done a lot of things in this game. We have 12 aircraft shot down. We've, put out, I believe, 5 or 6 fires at this point. We actually don't get the fireproof medal I was a little shocked at, but we do get the coveted dreadnought medal, which, does indicate that we were, taking a lot of damage, but also healing it appropriately. As I believe the dreadnought medal, you have to heal 120% of your total health. I don't exactly know how it works, but basically you can't heal citadel and penetration damage as well as fire damage. So a good little indicator for that. Probably not the best aim shot as this Rochester, stopped and kind of turned, but he was going behind that island there, and we would have lost the, shell arc to hit him, so we go ahead and take that shot. We got a few chunky penetrations anyway, which is nice, and anytime you can get, penetrations on those heavy cruisers, especially in a ship like the Georgia, with a good amount of overmatch, 30 millimeters of armor and below, pretty much everything at the tier, with the exception of the battleships, which have the 32 millimeter plating, you want to do so, right? Chunky penetrations, which is about 10,000 damage there, especially on a cruiser like that, is more than valuable. So some people always kind of wait for the perfect broadside shot, and that's not necessarily the best thing you want to do. Here, I decided it was time that we can go ahead and push in. We do have a decent point advantage as well as a moderate ship advantage. However, that KGV was still the AFK, so something I sort of forgot about. But the Massachusetts is making a good push into the middle, securing the B cap at the same time. At that point, the Rochester comes out. We got a beautiful salvo beforehand on the La Foudre. I probably should have finished the La Foudre off, but anytime you have a broadside cruiser and a battleship, it is just like... oh, it's just like candy. It's like Christmas morning. You just want those citadels. On top of that, we were actually trying to swing the back turret to hopefully get the double kill on the La Foudre, but we got 3 overpens on the Rochester. We did take the high caliber, so a little bit lower high caliber, for, I guess, compared to what I deem a very good game. But 140,000 is nothing to scoff at, as those two get the finishing touch on the Rochester and the La Foudre there. So a fantastic game. We do end up getting the Dreadnought, but 138,000 damage. And now, of course, the high caliber metal does change. We all know this. It's 30% of the overall total damage, which of course will change depending on the ship type, etc., right? If there's a bunch of destroyers, the total number of damage is going to be a lot lower. But a pretty good game overall, and you can expect even better from the Ohio with an extra turret, and I've heard better secondaries. We don't know the full ship statistics just yet. And of course, the God tier AA that will be an American, legendary tier battleship. Just think Montana, which from what we learned is basically it's a Georgia guns on a Montana hull. So I'm excited to try the Ohio. I know a lot of you are as well. Most of you guys are Battleship mains. We will be getting the full details of her release in a couple days here, if not on Monday. Please don't go out and buy a million Christmas crates right off the bat, even though it looks like there's some decent drop rates in the Christmas crates. But if you've got your money taken care of and you really want the Ohio, I know a lot of my guys are retirees, or they've got their finances in order and they're just going to spend the money. So who am I to tell you to stop? But if you're not, we will try and get you guys the most efficient and mostly free way to get the Ohio. But this is the video. I'm going to go ahead and let it finish out here. We get a decent XP score as we look back at our AFK guy. So 9 on 8 most of the game there, but a pretty good, well-rounded game. We did get fire spammed for a good portion of the beginning, and then at the end we did the appropriate things in order to help our team win. But that is the Georgia, a fantastic battleship in her own right. And we can only expect, more or better, I guess, from the Ohio. But that's the video. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys later on tonight. I wasn't on last night, I'm sorry, but we'll be on tonight. Love you guys. Aaron out. Peace.